It's time to wake up. Macrodata Refinement races to meet their quota by the end of the quarter to win the Waffle Party and aid their plan for overtime. Hello and welcome to The Road Goes Ever On and On. Today, Sterling and I are talking about episode 8 of the hit Apple TV show Severance. So, spoilers ahead. So if you're working overtime and enjoy our content, hit that like and subscribe button and we'll keep you company on your shift. And with that, Sterling, let's talk about episode 8. And I can't believe how right you were. And I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but like, Irv, we see painting this black paint, this black goo that's coming out from... So when he's dreaming, or when he's nodding off, he's seeing the paint that he paints with every day. At least that's how I interpreted it.
That's definitely the way that I interpreted it. But it also opens up even more questions, like, why has he seen that door? Right. What is the significance of that? Because that seems like the further down door, possibly where the people that don't come out go?
Yes, that's how I took it, because that's where Miss Casey went, and they said send her back to the testing floor.
Right, and they're already on, like, the bottomish floor.
Right.
And that had a down arrow, so it's going even further down. So it raises even more questions, but it was kind of... It also raises questions about, like, why he's doing this and how this information gets across. You know, like, he obviously has some form of memory of something from the other side. His other side, like his innie, has a memory of, like, the paint.
Right.
Is seeping through when he falls asleep. The outie doesn't want to go to sleep. He has a pot of coffee that he brews at the end of the night.
Right. And
like,
remember,
he comes home after sundown and brews a pot, like, not a cup, like a pot of coffee.
Well, he said that earlier because when he was talking to Bert was like, oh, my outie must sleep 15 hours a day because when I come in, I'm all rested. And Irv mentions he's always tired. He's always tired. Because he's drinking that coffee. But it does make sense. Like, if I was severed, you would think that a whole chunk of your own life is gone. So you only get 8 hours of existence before, if you're sleeping a full 8 hours, you only get 8 hours existence. I would want to stay up later because you just lose half your life at that point.
Right. Yeah. It doesn't leave a lot left between missing work and then, missing sleeping. It's like there's so little left. But I also had questions about him, from this, because we haven't really seen the others.
Right.
And so, like, we did see Dylan for a moment, but it wasn't enough to see who he is.
Right.
We haven't really seen Helly. We're probably going to talk a smidge about her towards the end, is my guess. But it was interesting to me that he doesn't necessarily seem like a painter. He's not... If you notice, like, the things he's grabbing, the first one he takes off is in a frame. But that could have been, like, a painting he painted over top of. Because the first thing that we see him paint on after he takes an existing painting off is literally just a piece of wood.
Right.
The next one we see him paint on had a bunch of, like, holes in it. It looked like something you put in, like, your garage where you can put hooks anywhere.
Yeah.
Like, he's not using... It's not like he has an easel, and is, like, pulling a canvas across something. And in fact, what we see him painting with, it looked to me like a trowel, something that you use for, like, putting the stuff in between bricks.
Right. Well, that actually that is actually a painter's tool. It looks like that trowel. For the paint that he was using, it's the I think it's the acrylic kind. They use that trowel to, like, and they do smear effects with it, and so that is an actual real painting tool.
Okay, so I was kind of wondering if that was, like, paint, like pointing information about his past, but right. I didn't know that can also be used for painting. But still, like the canvases were definitely
Right.
non-traditional.
Right. Not definitely not
Um,
traditional canvases.
and and even the one that we did see that he first took off that was framed, there was paint on the frame, so it looked to me like he just painted over an existing painting, not like he
Right.
painted on a canvas and then added a frame to it, because you could see paint that was like smeared across the frame.
Right. Well, but
So,
also, why paint this? Why continuously paint the same painting over and over again?
right.
Like,
Like, is he, you know, is he trying to. It kind of reminded me of Dylan in, I don't remember if it's the last episode, but when he finds out he has a son, and then he said that he's been spending every moment trying to remember details
right, everything he could
because
remember.
it was so important to him. Like he didn't want to forget anything, and so he's just trying to think of, like, trying to spend every moment trying to think of that. And so it kind of made me wonder if it's something like that. Like, is this something he knows it's important and he doesn't want to forget it, and so he's going to whatever lengths, like drinking coffee, painting these paintings, hoping that some nugget comes out that will give him an important clue. So we've talked about cinematography in some of the previous episodes.
Right.
There was one part of cinematography I really liked when Irving was doing the painting, right? And he's starting from the outside in, and so it's like it's a brown canvas piece, this piece of wood, and
Right.
he's like putting on that black paint and like working its way in, and it's cutting between shots of the canvas and shots of him, and as that area that's not black shrinks, the frame around him is also shrinking. So it's like we're looking at him through that hole in the paint.
Ooh, I
I
did not
thought
notice that.
they it's great. The
Very
show's
right.
the show's great. I love it.
Oh yeah. I did like the way that the very first opening shot, because we talk about how like how much religion is weaved into this show, and like the concepts of religion. And with him, he's sitting out right in front of a church. Today, even thinking about with where Miss Casey got sent to, it's like another form of hell, and hell's always pictured down below. And even when he read the book, it, like, those pages were very Bible-esque pages. So
They
it
really were.
they are really doing a good job of selling this Severance as almost a religion.
Right. It's it's absolutely wild. So kind of going back to him,
Yes.
I was curious about the song and the song choice that was playing. Because it was Ace of Spades, I don't remember who's by, but it, to me, if the song has significance, like, my guess was that, is he potentially taking a gamble? Is something that, like, is what he's doing a big risk?
Ooh. I mean, that
Because
makes
it doesn't,
sense.
it doesn't seem like there's much in this show that is not significant in one way or another.
Right.
Like, there's very little that is just casually placed.
Right. Was when we saw him look under his fingernails, are we thinking that that was just paint now?
That is what I'm kind of thinking.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's what I thought too. I was pretty excited about him hanging out at that greenhouse with Petey, but
I know.
I think that I'm completely off base. But speaking of another thing that I feel like you have been so laser focused on and have been so correct every time, the Four Tempers. We saw, you know, jumping a little bit ahead with Dylan winning that waffle party, which, what a weird waffle party.
What a weird waffle
Not
party.
what I was expecting when we heard about waffle parties as an incentive structure. Like, we've seen melon parties, we've seen egg parties. where
And they seem like parties. Like
yeah,
there's like lights and music, and it's fun, and you're with your friends. I mean, they're the only people you know in the world, but they're your family because. But yeah, this was so weird.
so weird. He goes eats in Kier Egan's house,
In replica
and
of Kier Egan's house, yeah.
right, and it's all like creepy and dark down there. Then he like puts on the Kier mask, and then four
And
dancers
next,
come out.
did you see next to him was the cat o' nine tails, and each one of them had one of the nine values on it. So
Yes. And I think
couldn't.
I know all of the 9 values now, or the principles. There's just one I don't know. So
Okay,
we
I'm worried. I'm worried if you have them memorized that you're like into this religion. Like you're gonna join the school. You're gonna. I have them memorized. I know the four tempers. I'm there.
I went to Kier Egan's all boys school, and
You went to the carnival.
I went to the Carnival. I drank the Curelade,
You're
and
late.
I drank it all. And so I know the 9 principles are wiles, vision, probity, nimbleness, humility, benevolence, wit, cheer, and I don't know the last one. I couldn't find it. Even when she
I'm a pretty nimble man myself, so
So did you get all 9?
Miss Cobell had actually said them at one point. So if I go back through my
Okay.
notes, I can definitely
She
see.
did say them all?
She said them all. She was in her office 2 to 4 episodes ago,
Okay.
and then she stopped on Wiles, and she was that it was the one where she was getting ready to go to the funeral, and she had to figure out like how is she going to get this chip
out.
back.
Right,
And
right.
and so she was going through the 9 values to figure out like what value do I need. And so she was saying the 9 values, and she was looking at a picture which we still haven't seen who was in that picture.
I thought it was Kier.
Because this was in maybe it was in her office. I don't remember seeing it. I might be wrong,
Okay.
but she like Wiles was the last one, and she repeated it, and to me it sounded like this is the one. Like I'm going to have to try and like manipulate people to get what I want. Go back through those, and we'll come back to those.
Okay, Miss Cobell though is having a rough day.
She is, but it's also pointing out that what she wants and what
The
Lumen
board
wants
wants.
aren't necessarily what the same thing. And I've already said that like it seems like she has possibly different wants from like the other people, like Mr.
Right.
Milchick, possibly Mr. Grainer, like, but it definitely showed even more when I can't remember her name, but when the one girl went in there with the
Natalie.
pictures, Natalie went in there with the pictures. Miss Cobell said, "Did you get those from Mr. Milchick?"
Right.
Which means like she thinks that he's the kind of guy that might go around her. So they're not necessarily aligned. And then at the very end of this episode, we see Miss Cobell say to Mark, when he says, "I'm thinking of leaving," she says,
Do it. So good. I knew
"Oh,
I knew he was like as soon as everything was happening and when he said be aware when you go in the elevator because you don't know where you're going to wake up. I'm like, "Oh, he's going to wake up right next to Mrs. Selvig. Has to." And it's like
right.
mid-hug.
Oh, yeah." So when she goes to her place and she's kind of losing it, she's like tearing the posters down from the wall,
Right.
breaking stuff in like that, display she has, whatever. The last thing that we see her do is there was a tube, and to me it kind of looks like a breathing tube, and it's next to like the bracelet that has like Charlotte Cobell on it that looks like a medical bracelet, and she holds it. So I kind of feel like there is somebody from her past that's important to her. I don't know exactly who this is, what the connection is, but there's something that has extreme significance, and it does kind of make me wonder what her end game is. Like what exactly is she trying to get from this? I know that we already mentioned that it seems like their ideas are aligned differently. We've kind of seen that officially now in like letting her go. But it does make me wonder like what because she at the same time she is like she's all in on like the philosophy, like the churchy stuff.
I still think it's her mom. I still think Charlotte Cobell is her mom, and I'm still thinking that one of the Egans had probably a marital affair with Charlotte Cobell, and that her whole goal is to, like prove herself as an Egan, even though she's technically a Cobell. I think that's my theory. Like, that's why I think she is so deep in the, like, the culture of Egan, yet it does seem like she's not fully on the Lumen path. Like, so
Yes, exactly.
she's not going down the Lumen path, she's going down the Egan path, and I think that she is trying to prove herself as a bastard Egan.
So I don't know if I necessarily think that like she has relations with the Egans, but she does seem in on like whatever Kier is teaching. She's all aboard that.
I'm just
And
trying
and
to
you
figure
really
out what her motivation would be. Like, if she doesn't align with Lumen, but she wants to align with the teachings of Kier, what would be that motivation, you think?
don't know. There's because she's I really I can't tell. I know that she seems so sincere at certain points. Obviously she's very fake at some points, but then there are other moments where we see her be so sincere when she's talking to Mark in the office and she starts to say, "I really," and then she corrects it to, "We really needed this." So like
Oh.
Helly completing that, whatever it is that they do, this was more than just like, the company really respects this. The company really wants this. She started to say, "I really needed this." Which still begs the question of what do they do?
Right. Well, and also after she's let go and we see her, hugging Mark, and he's telling her about that he's thinking about leaving Lumen, she tells him to run. She says, "Go, like, run from them." So I think, yeah, she's not aligned with Lumen, but she definitely.
She's on the Egan train. She's aboard.
But and it also, she was hiding the pictures from the board of Helly almost killing herself.
I think that possibly Miss Cobell wanted her to complete the task. Like, whatever the cost, she felt like she could get this done. And what's kind of interesting about whatever mysterious work they do? It does seem like nobody else can work on somebody else's file. The rest of them have all been done for a week. They're just waiting on Helly to finish. You can feel the tension of, like, are we going to complete this in time? Everybody wants it so badly. Everybody's worried it's not going to happen. And they just are waiting and watching. How wild is that? That, like, none of the other three macro data refiners can work on her file?
Right.
They can't as a team, like, oh, let's do this together. Like, whatever she is working on, I think she is the only one that can perceive the fear from these numbers and the whatever from these numbers. And
I will say that this episode was misleading in the beginning. the episode previously, we ended kind of on like what's gonna happen, what are the dynamics gonna be, like we're planning to, like we had, Dylan attack Milchek, and then it seemed like everybody was working towards this goal. Like it seemed like for once Cobell, Milchek, and the data refiners were all on the same page of just like, we gotta get this done, we gotta get this done, only to find out that it was to secure the Waffle Party.
The deeper we get into this company, the stranger that things kind of get. I don't remember how many episodes ago it was, the reference to the fact that O&D made axes, but that has kind of come back in a quote in the handbook, which makes it seem like there is somebody's job in this company to wield an axe. So I saw, when Irv is reading the handbook, it says, I can't see all of it, so there's like an introductory part that's cut off. So it's like something, 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 suffer injurious pain or ghastly dehumanization, and no workspace is without its perils. But whatever your task, dear worker, see that you perform it with love. And this is the interesting part. Endow in each swing of your axe or swipe of your pen the sum of your affections, that through me they may be purified and returned. No higher purpose may be found than this, nor any higher love. This, after all, is the ultimate recompense for your something. No monetary wage that I may give you, and then it kind of trails off. It's interesting because I really think this isn't just like a theoretical sentence, because we did see that axes were made. So I really think that somebody's job literally is to wield an axe. And it's kind of saying that doing the work of Egan is the best thing that you can do. No monetary wage can be better than that, which is interesting because one of our viewers kind of pointed out that the innies don't even get to see the fruits of their labor. They don't get to see the money.
Right.
So
Now,
to some extent, they don't even get a monetary wage.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. Like, these are basically working, like, they're like slaves. They are working a slave labor where they don't get to enjoy the monetary rewards of their labor, which is crazy to me. And I didn't even think about that until that comment. Now, I don't want to split hairs, but technically they were making hatchets, not axes. So, I guess a hatchet is a smaller form of an axe, maybe, but not to split. Not saying you're wrong. Just they were making hatchets, not axes. But
okay, that's an interesting point. You still have to wonder like what they're doing with it,
that's true. Yeah, why make hatchets? You're right. Like, they're, as a medical company, it doesn't seem like they would need to make hatchets.
Right.
So, I have a question about, we saw Dylan, he gets into the room where he's trying to, turn off the switches. And we see there's the overtime protocol, and there's a couple other protocols on there. And I'm wondering what the relevance are, if they are relevant, if they can do anything. We see the lullaby, and we see the open house protocol. So I'm wondering, I have a theory, if the chips, can do other things. So if the chips can say, the lullaby procedure just puts them to sleep. Like, at any moment they can knock them out. And I wonder if, the open house procedure, I don't have a solid theory on that one, but I'm wondering if it's a way to erode the barrier between memories of each person, of Innie and Outie, so that they can kind of have the memories together and be like, oh, I remember it all.
What if the open house is a way to erase things and have a fresh canvas?
Oh.
Not like a house that's lived in, but like an open house. doesn't have the furniture, it doesn't
Oh.
have the art on the walls, and somebody can be
Almost like what they're probably doing with Miss Casey is maybe the open house procedure. They just clear out all the furniture, take it out, start fresh, building new
little
memories.
fresh paint on the wall. Yeah,
I
that
didn't.
that just
I
that's
like
just a
that theory
guess.
better. No, I like that better actually. I think the open house that sounds more. That sounds more logical than bleeding the brain barriers because we already saw with Petey that with integration, blurring the memories back is already kind of a hectic process. So I,
Right.
I like your idea better on that one.
And it's weird that you know the weirdness that we see isn't just on the inside. It seems like Lumen's control of the greater land, or Kier's control of the greater land, has kind of bled out some of that weirdness. Like inside it's very obvious that they're using like old equipment, like the screens that they use, like the keyboards that they type on. When Helly completes the thing, the graphics are very, very old, and the music sounds like a MIDI,
It
like that.
it reminds me of those old learn to type computer games that you play and you get the reward and he comes out. That was ridiculously funny, by the way, where he flies away. He's like, "I love you. I'm proud of you. I couldn't have done it without you. I'm off to go save other people," and he just flies.
Right.
So ridiculous.
But also, the most of the cars you see are old cars. So even on the outside, you know, I don't think I saw anybody driving like a brand new vehicle. They're all from like the 80s and the 90s, but they clearly have modern cell phones. So it's not that it's from an older time period. It's just kind of a weird juxtaposition.
I didn't notice that with the cars, so that's interesting. Speaking of Miss Casey, and we see that, Mark goes to one last session with Miss Casey, and we hear Cobell say that, they don't remember, or our Milchek says it, that they don't remember, and you should be happy, this is a good thing. But a part of me feels like deep down, Miss Casey knows. Like we hear her talk about, how he has kind eyes and her favorite time of existing in this very short period of time of existing, her best time was the 8 hours she spent with MDR. Now is that because she's with Mark? Because she deep down knows that?
Right.
I don't know.
Oh no, that scene was heartbreaking to me. The show, it never feels like it's leading me along, but it does also leave me with a lot of questions. So it
Yes.
doesn't this doesn't feel like Lost, where it's like I don't know if any of this is ever going to bear fruit. I'm getting more questions than answers. It doesn't quite feel like that, but it does feel like there are like enigmas.
I feel like there is still a lot that has been asked in this season that I don't know how they can wrap it up all in one episode.
I know I can't wait to watch the next episode because I wonder how much of that is going to be complete. How much are they going to give us, or is a lot of that being left for season 2?
Well,
You know,
yeah, and speaking of the cliffhanger for this episode, we see, Mark's going to wake up at the party in
yep.
probably with Miss Cobell. We don't know Dylan and Irv waking up, but we saw Helly waking up what looks like she's going to be at the gala.
So I totally did not think about that. I just thought that she was like dressed up nice to do some kind of fun fancy party. my wife is the one who pointed out that the gala is going on at the same time, and that was like, whoa.
I noticed that when I think Mark is leaving work that day, they're setting up the gala, and she was dressed so fancy that like I wouldn't expect her at the party with Mark. Like that was a little
Yeah,
bit more, casual. Where she seemed like cocktail attire, which the only thing I can think of is that gala, and that's going to
right.
be
No,
interesting.
it makes totally right, and it's like, what is she doing there? Who invited her? Like, you're like, how did she get the in? And that was like such a almost like blink and you miss it type
Oh
thing.
yeah,
They didn't. It's not like the shot lingered on her and then like cut to them setting up for so to like really make that connection. They did show at one point them setting up for it, but it wasn't like back to back, and
right.
they weren't doing the hard work of like connecting the dots for you. They gave you the tools to get there, but then it's like you gotta pay attention to figure that out on your own.
Which why is she there? And that's like when Mark was saying, before they went up into the elevator, he's like, we don't know what we're gonna be doing. Like you could be in the middle of skiing, driving, you don't know what's gonna happen. Just like prepare for the worst. And
Right.
she's waking up at the gala where there's, I'm assuming, an Egan or two are there. So what does that
Well, I
mean?
mean, I think I was gonna say obviously Negan is gonna be there, but that's not necessarily obvious. What I'm pretty sure is there is the board, which I would assume is made up of at least one Egan, because Miss Cobell was going to meet the board there before she got fired, which is also kind of interesting to me that they fired her knowing that she has information about, like she has proof that they can reintegrate, and that
Right.
they don't want to know what that proof is anymore. They don't,
Yeah,
maybe they don't maybe they don't believe it because they were pretty adamant about like,
well, also she technically has probably the most secrets of Lumen of like her level. She's not severed. Maybe she signs an NDA or
right,
something, but still, like, the fact is that she does have probably a lot of dirt on them.
right,
So cutting her off could be detrimental to the company. Interesting. Another thing about the board, I don't know if you noticed it, when she's being fired, the pictures are brought to her. She's talking to that one girl, and she's like, "Is the board even here?" And he says, "Yes." But it sounds
oh,
like
right.
Kier. It sounds like
It
Kier.
does. From like the Perpetuity wing, the recordings we hear, it's like that weird raspy voice, 100%.
So I think that lends credence to the theory that maybe Kier is recycling himself, maybe, or I don't know.
Right. I I don't know. It's wild.
Very wild.
I do have one last little nod. This isn't necessarily like, you know, really revealing anything amazing. It's just kind of interesting detail that I like the fact that they put time and effort into this. Like I like the effort that this show puts in. And it treats us as a very smart audience. It doesn't just give everything on a platter. Some of the stuff is stuff that you kind of have to put together yourself. And they are kind of detail oriented. So I like the fact that here Egan's names, like the first and last name, are both Irish in origin, which does kind of give you interesting information about kind of where his people come from. And I don't remember exactly what these, like the exact meaning, but Kier had something to do with dark or like darkness, and Egan had something to do with fire, which kind of reminds me of like here in the dark cave, like the Taming of the Four Tempers, and you can see like the light pouring in from behind him. He looks kind of godlike, but also like a terrifying god, because he's
Almost
got
like a
the cat of
devil.
nine tails.
Darkness and flames.
But then he also believes in illumination above all.
Well, wait a minute. Okay, spitballing here. So, in the Garden of Eden, God was like, don't eat the apple with all the knowledge, no, don't have the illumination. And the devil came as a snake and was like, hey, eat that apple, enjoy the knowledge. Illumination above all. Here's the devil.
Right.
I'm sticking to that theory.
It's it's wild. Anyway, yeah. I like that kind of little thing to point out.
Yeah. But I think with that, that will do it for episode 8 for us. We will see you next time as we watch the final episode of Severance. Thanks for joining. Have a good night.
Thanks.